Department. Chairperson, I will hand over to you now. We have a quorum currently. Thank you.
No, it's fine, Llewellyn. Can you do a roll call?
Thank you, Chairperson. I have yourself, Honorable Binko Gigaba. I have Honorable Yabo, Honorable Siwela. I have Honorable van der Walt, Honorable Van Zyl, Honorable Mashabela, and Honorable Ngobo currently present. I have apologies for members, Honorable Dr. Tembe Kwayo and Honorable Sukers. Honorable Sukers indicates that she may join us a bit later. From the department chair, I have the apologies from both the minister and the deputy minister. I do see that DG is with us, but he has indicated that due to connectivity problems, because he's currently on visits in KZN, so he may have intermittent connectivity, but I do see that he is present. Chairperson, thank you very much.
No, thank you very much. The whip is also having serious network problems, Honorable Adwans. So if she is able to connect, I think she will connect. If she can't, then she can't, but she's struggling with network where she is. Morning, everybody. Let me greet the DG with all the officials in the department. Let me also greet the members. Let me also greet our support staff and everybody that has joined our meeting. We are having this meeting, which we will be dealing with the state of school readiness, and we are from KZN. Last week we were in KZN province, where we have actually saw by ourselves what is happening on the ground. We have visited Trade District, the Zululand, King Petruayo, and Herigwala District. We had a very successful oversight, but of course members will allude to it when they probably speak on what they have found on the ground and what was there and not there. There is someone who was saying they've got a sound program problem. I'm just trying to check. Llewellyn, can you hear me properly?
Yes, Chairperson, you are clear.
Okay.
We can.
It might be network problems or what, but I think I'm fine now. Yeah. So we, Heidi and Lizelle, we are okay. Maybe it's network problems where you are. So we had that, and I must say that we had a very committed team from DBE, as usual, that is always there to assist. And we had a DDG there that was leading the delegation from day one to day last in KZN. So I'm not going really to waste time. If you can fly the agenda for us, Llewellyn, members would notice we have today the state of readiness for this academic year as the only item, and then after that we will be adopting the minutes of 6th December and 24th of January. Can I note hands from members to adopt the agenda?
Chairperson,
Yes.
I move for the adoption of the agenda.
Thank you very much, Honorable Swela. Babu Ngobo. Unmute Mapoloba.
Thank you very much, Chairperson and honorable members. I just wanted to second the adoption of the agenda as it is.
Thank you very much, Mapolo Basiyabonga. Now that the agenda is adopted, in the absence of both the Minister and the Deputy Minister, DG, let me hand over.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Good morning, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members. As indicated, I'm in Kanyakud monitoring the infrastructure project in the Manguse area. Ms. Gaya is going to take us through a very comprehensive presentation looking at the usual aspects of state of readiness report. It will also pick up on what the oversight visit carried out in KZN, but also look at the districts that we sampled for monitoring as well. The main reason really we experienced problems in Gauteng and Western Cape. We do experience problems in all the 9 provinces, but it's much more pronounced in Western Cape and Gauteng. One of the main reasons this time is economic hardships. The middle class parents moving away from private schools to public schools, placing an unprecedented pressure that we've ever experienced before, but also the inward migration from the other provinces, including from outside the country. But I've been informed from and Western Cape that has been drastically reduced. Western Cape has assured us that all learners are going to be through the presentation that we have prepared, Chair. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, you can
Gaya.
proceed. You can proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Mrs. Gaya.
Thank you, DG, and good morning, Honorable Chairperson. Good morning to all the members, the honorable members in the House, and also good morning to the departmental officials. The presentation, I will then ask Lizelle to please slide it. And whilst it's being flighted, I think DG has given us an outline of exactly what the presentation covers. We tried to cover as many of the areas that are relevant to school readiness for us, which are the things that we normally go out into the provinces and we go and check. This year, we conducted the school readiness program in the provinces that were and the districts that were sampled. So just to highlight that the purpose and the reason we do the school readiness visits is because we want to get information about what support and what challenges are experienced in the key areas that we look at. And this is so that we can monitor and we can look at the impact on effective teaching and learning on the first day of the academic year, and to ensure that whatever the challenges are that are experienced, they are addressed promptly and at the most appropriate level in the system. So from the 11th to the 20th of January, we did monitoring in the inland provinces. These were Free State, Gauteng, and Limpopo, Mpumalanga, and Northwest. And on the 18th to the 27th of January, we did the coastal provinces, and this was Eastern Cape, KwaZulu-Natal, Northern Cape, and Western Cape. In total, there were 26 districts that were sampled across all provinces. These districts were randomly selected, and the presentation then would give you information about what we have experienced there. But we've also added in the presentation that areas that are of a generic nature which affects the system, and these are areas which are around learner admissions, availability of teachers, LTSM infrastructure, curriculum coverage, access to ICT and ECD, amongst other things. On admissions then, DG has covered some of the aspects in his opening remarks, but the key thing is that we are tracking the extent to which learner admissions have been covered over the provinces. If you can just wait there, Lizelle. I am still on the slides which talk to the provinces and the challenges before we get to Western Cape. So therefore, we then look at over the provinces, what are the challenges, the extent to which there are mitigations that have been put in place by the province. And in particular, we wanted to understand how many learners in each province still had to be placed. And so you will see that we have the figures there per province. I will just summarize the reasons over and above what DG has explained. So largely, even if it is not in the key big provinces that have problems of large numbers that migrate there, across the provinces there are areas of or problems of relocation of people that move from rural areas to metro areas, and as a result of that, as in when the need arises for them to move, they would not have met the timeframes for the admissions when the closing date was. And so that's some of the issues that are picked up about when we do our monitoring. Also, for various reasons, there are people that apply after the 30th of September when the admissions period closed. This could be because they moved, or they had some difficulties why they believe they need to move the child from one school to another, and it's circumstantial, and so that we still pick up as well in the system. There's also the issue around parents' choice. They have perceptions of which is the school they want the child to go to, and they're not able to all get their children into the desired school they want. There are issues around death of parents and guardians then that have to take responsibility for the children that were left behind. And the children then move to where the guardians stay, and the guardians want the children to get into the schools that are nearest to where they live. And then also there is rapid growth in particular areas and in particular provinces over and above the Western Cape and Gauteng. And in these areas, for instance, in KZN, it would be Richards Bay. In Eastern Cape, it would maybe be areas like Tebeja and East London. You can go through the provinces, the big provinces. In Limpopo, it would be Polokwane. So there where there is those areas that are having economic spurts of growth, you would find that there's also issues around people migrating there in the provinces. Overall, the placement in the country has been satisfactory. There were just these two provinces, Western Cape and Gauteng, which historically each year they have problems because of the large numbers of migration. I'll move now to the slide of the Western Cape. And here we're just looking up the issues as DG has given an overview. So the Western Cape has chosen to give us a figure of the total number of learners that they've enrolled in the entire system. And you'll see that that number is 1.1 million learners. And the number of placements which they still had to do, and which they had given us a commitment that irrespective of the difficulties, they will ensure that these learners are placed. So the placement percentage is 0.13%, which in actual numbers is 1,579. And this figure was as at Friday when we met with the Western Cape and Gauteng. And over the weekend and into yesterday, they had improved that figure. Both Western Cape and Gauteng had improved the figure. They had reported us in that that figure had since gone down as well. So if we then move to the Gauteng slide, I just want to show there. So this Gauteng has rather focused on grades, which is grade 1 and grade 8, which are the big entry-level grades where they have problems. And they have given the proper figure in relation to those grades. So they have total applications that they had to sort out was, or the total number that they got in was 355,333. And of that, they already placed 350,651. And the figure of unplaced learners is 4,682. And again, yesterday in our headcom meeting, that indicated that this figure had already gone down because they work on this on a daily basis, even over the weekend. And so they had managed to, make it, the number keeps going down. Both provinces are committed to ensure that learners that are not placed, they will be placed. The next slides give you some information then on the challenges which I have already alluded to when I spoke to the problems across the provinces, but in particular for these provinces that have this high intake, the increased applications by parents from independent schools due to financial distress and parents not able to pay fees in independent schools is a phenomenon that is experienced. If there are problems, you must just let me know because there is an indication that my network is unstable right now. On the issues around the placements that are coming from independent schools, we feel that we need to look at this very carefully to establish the extent to which this is a clear phenomena that is of hardship, that is a new pattern that is beginning to impact on public schooling, where parents are putting the system because they can't afford the independent schools any longer. But also, when these parents get choices that are offered, they decline the placements because they have particular options that they want, or the other way around, those parents who still can afford, they decline our placements and then they take to independent schools. I've spoken to this issue about guardians and what how that is impacting, and I've also spoken about the job losses that make other siblings take over responsibility for the learners and financially and wanting to attend schools closer. A big problem that both the provinces of Gauteng and Western Cape mentioned was incomplete applications, and therefore, if it's an incomplete application, even although it reads as an unplaced learner, they can't do anything on that if they don't get the information that is required from the parents, and the parents have to come and submit that information to the province. A new phenomena or an old phenomena, but it's just becoming a lot more obvious now, is this thing about fraudulent proof of residence as a way to get learners into this desired schools of choice that parents want them to go to. Then there's also problems around delay of accepting the placement, and also there's lots of unnecessary appeals to the MEC, and that affects the progress in terms of sorting out placement. Parents come from other provinces, as we explained, if there are movement in terms of economic growth or the economic hubs in the country. Parents get jobs, look for jobs in those areas, and that puts further pressure on the learners coming with the parents into those provinces. Non-South Africans who reside in high pressure areas also puts us under pressure, as well as schools in high pressure areas are oversubscribed, and there is limited infrastructure and unavailability of land to really build new schools fast within this. So these are some of the things we spend time to tell you about. And then, of course, we have mitigation that we have in place. For instance, one of the things that we are looking at, and these provinces, they actively do that. It's on the next slide that I'm busy with now. So the allocation of funds then to identify building new schools is critical. In the Western Cape, there are 842 additional brick and mortar schools that are being built, and in Gauteng it's 878. There's also the provision of mobiles for schools that are oversubscribed, where they have not classroom building initiatives in place yet. And then in particular, the provinces have spoken to the establishment of 8 satellite schools to accommodate unplaced learners. I will give you just zooming in an example of that on the following slide. There's increased school capacities to include the use of specialist rooms, and so that limits some of the possibilities that the school would, in terms of broadening subject choice and so on in the school. And Gauteng might in some areas consider platooning, that's what they also told us, to alleviate overcrowding as a temporary measure. Now, just to give you an example of zooming in on in the next slide. So I'll just take this one province and the one district in that province. You can see the examples further in the slide. But for instance, in Ekurhuleni North in Gauteng, they had 501 grade 8 learners in the Kempton Park area that were unplaced. And so 106 of those learners, they were able to place them in neighboring schools across that area. But they had a whole 501 of those learners went into Kempton Park, and they had a satellite school there. And so what they did is they took the remaining, after they had this problem of looking for identifying 106 learners, they then took the remainder of the 395 and they placed it in a school. They found an additional building that they could utilize, and they then turned it into a temporary school. And so that's all that whole 395 learners are in a school that only now has grade 8, until they're able to sort out problems of building a comprehensive school that can cover all the grades. So these are some of the measures that provinces are trying to speed up. I will move on now and try to go a bit faster. So we're moving on to teacher provisioning. And in teacher provisioning, we have a policy called the post-provisioning model that has to ensure that we follow certain steps to declare the establishments each year. And so we just are highlighting that we follow these processes and we monitor it, and we ensure that there's compliance in terms of these norms, and the processes and timeframes are followed in all the provinces. All of the provinces have declared their establishment according to the post-provisioning model by the 30th of September. Only 2 provinces declared their establishments late, and they did that in October. As a result of the establishment letters that went out to the schools by 30th of September, the number of educators additional to the staff establishment, as have been reported to us for 2023, is reflected in those numbers per province. These are educators then that are additional to the staff establishment and therefore have to move to vacant neighboring posts that meet the teachers' profiles. We move on then. The slide just speaks to that issue I spoke about earlier around the 2 provinces that have declared late, and that all the others have met the time frames of September. We can move on then in terms of what happens after we have done with the establishments in terms of the PPN. Then we have to look at how do we place Funza Lushaka graduates. For 2023, there were 5,027 potential graduates that had to be placed, and the PEDs received information in October about this. And they have a total of 5,027 that across the provinces we give you the figures of the graduates that have to be placed. Of course, in this instance, it's not only about the Funza Lushaka graduates. They also look at placing other graduates, which are the NSFAS graduates, as well as the self-funded graduates that come out of universities, because we have a need for the teachers that we need to get into the system. It might not happen right at the beginning of the year, but as and when teachers leave through retirement, these are the measures that we then look towards finding placements for teachers from all these various sources. If we move on to the LTSM, in terms of learning and teaching support materials, so we just give a background of what we work with in the department here. And we have an LTSM sector plan, and that sector plan guides the sector regarding the provisioning of LTSM. There are milestone deliverables and timeframes that have to be declared by the province, by each province. And the provinces have to submit LTSM management plans to the DBE. And then we also have LTSM forum meetings where the provinces attend, and we monitor the provinces through the information that they provide to us in their management plans, and we go out and physically monitor the extent to which the planning is in place at a key moments in the year, as well as the monitoring and support to ensure that all of the books are then delivered on time. And we target ideally that by the time the school closes, most of these things should be sorted out. If there are some problems, it's just over a small number over December and into early January that these problems are sorted out. We then just go on to talk about on slide 16. We give you an overview of the procurement and delivery progress. It's the next slide. And in terms of that, we have our textbook policy has a retrieval policy as well. And so when we are talking about textbook delivery, it's that top up of the delivery. And it is, in terms of retrieval, we always have very successful retrievals that are over 90%. And so it's that 10% that they then have to do the top up orders on, and to ensure that the textbooks are delivered. You can see from this slide that most of the deliveries are at 100%. There are some few provinces that are at 99.5 or 99%, 93.5, and so on. And these textbooks are in the print and will be delivered to the schools very soon. And the stationery, most of the provinces there have delivered the stationery at 100%, and there's some few provinces, 3 provinces that are not at 100%. Two are over 90 and one is at 85, and they're in the process of delivering the stationery there. So I've spoken to the issues then on LTSM. I just want to give you some information about the workbooks. So we also deliver workbooks to the schools, and the national department is responsible for that. We deliver 2 volumes per year, and volume 1 was in the schools, 100% delivery by the time that we closed the school last year. And now we are in the process of delivering volume 2. And volume 2 is the book that is used after June. And so before the end of March, all of volume 2 will have been 100% delivered into all the schools for this year. Moving on then to issues of infrastructure and maintenance. On slide 24, we go there. So here we're just giving you our indicator in the sector of the things that we have to track and monitor around infrastructure, and the slides that follow give you the details on that. So we have to look at the number of schools that are provided with water supply, electricity, sanitation facilities, additional classrooms that are built, specialist rooms that are built. We also have to look at new schools that are ready and to hand over and occupation. Also, we have to track new schools that are under construction, and the number of grade R schools that are built, the number of schools that are provided with new or additional boarding facilities, the number of schools where there are scheduled maintenance projects that are completed, the number of schools where there's high security perimeter fencing, and the number of schools that are provisioned as smart classrooms. And in each of these examples that I have read out now, there are targets that we have had for this financial year, and we give you the progress against that target that we have reached until now. The details of this, of course, DG is best placed to give you really detailed information, because this has been a project that from the side of DBE, we have really taken it upon ourselves to track and to chase up these projects to ensure that there is delivery of the maintenance and infrastructure, and to ensure that the funding in various aspects. For instance, we have the EIG grant, and that grant is there for maintenance of facilities, and there are certain conditions that are stipulated within that, and therefore we have to make sure that about 60% of that grant is allocated to maintenance projects, and we put in place incentive allocations on the EIG to ensure that the qualifying provincial departments then address immediate challenges such as the norms and standards and maintenance, and like I say, duty activity tracks, all of that in the visits that he goes out to provinces. The details of that in the slides that follow speak to the ACD and SAFE projects. We give you the actuals that have been achieved in terms of inappropriate structures, water supply, sanitation, and electricity. And we track it over a period from 2011-12 financial year all the way through to 2022-23 financial year, so that you can see what our projections were and what the totals were that we achieved. Moving on into the next area, which is also something that we follow and track to ensure that the on-province in the provinces is about learner transport. And here it is about looking at availability of the learner transport to check whether the plans are in place to ensure that learners are transported timelessly, and that the learner transport is in fact available when the schools reopen. It's also about ensuring that the road safety programs are followed by the operators, the learner transport operators, the parents and learners, in order to raise an awareness about road safety and law enforcement, and to ensure that within the environment of learner transport, there's minimal involvement in risk, and also that the government, the contractors of these transport and operators understand what they have to do. There were some problems in the Eastern Cape, but we were able to resolve that. And there was also some problems of late arrival of transport or overcrowding of the buses in some provinces that were reported. And the officials in the provinces had resolved. The next two slides give you information on learner transport in ordinary schools as well as LCM schools. In this respect, these slides give you a breakdown per province of the number of learners who are in need of transport, the number of schools that are in need of transport, the number of learners that are targeted to be transported, and the number of schools that are targeted. And then we give you a quarterly breakdown of the actual learners that have been transported and the percentages of learners that were transported against targets that we set. So that just covers both LCM in the same way and ordinary schools in per province in the breakdown. Moving on then, on the curriculum coverage, there's a lot of detail on the curriculum coverage, which I'll try to just go over very quickly without spending too much time on it. So, you know, the pandemic still continues to plague us in the system. There were unprecedented teaching losses that we have to continue to see how we play catch up on. There was not one learner in the system that was not affected by this. And so therefore we had to trim the ATPs in 2020 to ensure that we look at how to deal with time loss and the associated impact. And we are just giving you information about the recovery of the ATPs, which then if you take it from 2020 and 2021, we looked at the recovery plan. The grade 12s are not touched by this, but all the other grades that came through, we had to ensure that we reflect that. There's a lot of preparation that goes into each year academically. You can just stay on the previous slide, because there's various support that we have to look at around online support. We have an online teacher survey that's conducted, which gives us feedback on the gaps of the 2022 ATPs. I'm on slide 26 now. Lizelle, I'm on slide 26. You are racing ahead. So, colleagues, I don't know why she's racing, what's happening on the slides, but for those who are following the presentation, I am on slide 26 on the preparations for the academic year. And in terms of this, there's a lot of review teams that have been established per subject that looks at the ATPs and how to revise that based on the issues that I have explained. There's some centralized revision and finalization of and feedback that is taken from the teacher surveys to ensure that we factor in all this information and quality assure the ATPs, the unions that are involved in it, the department officials are involved at the provincial level as well as national. And there's a lot of editing and design to ensure that the program is adjusted and approval is made on the revised ATPs by CEM. And then the release of the circular S33 of 2022, which is updated, and then it's loaded onto the DBE website and made available to everyone and stakeholders. So the provinces then, in relation to all of the curriculum plans, have various support programs on the next slide 28. And in this respect, we have mediation and study guide programs for grade R to 9 that look at monitoring the curriculum coverage, as well as strengthening and revising early grade reading assessment tools in all languages in particular. And we have study guides for mathematics, science, and technology, as well as we monitor and support curriculum coverage in underperforming districts, and we monitor and support in the extra classes that the provinces are presenting. We are the learning resource materials that I've explained largely in the slide. I have covered that. I can then move on to early childhood development. And on ECD, this new function that we took over 1 April 2022 is moving in leaps and bounds in the department. The programs of ECD are far less rigid than in an academic year, because the focus is on early learning. And so we have continued to provide support programs as we took over this function from social development. We provide some support programs that are continuous for the ECD centers. And in the academic year for 2023, we've also started again with that. But more importantly, what we have focused on is to speed up the registration process of the ECD centers. There were some grave problems that were experienced. It was very tedious when the function was with the DSD. What we have looked at is to simplify that registration process so that we can speed up the number of centers that can actually get registered, and so that the registered centers can then also start to benefit of a state subsidy for the learners. The PEDs, they are responsible for the transfer of funding through the conditional grant that's provided to provinces, to the ECD centers. And we are monitoring the 4th tranche now in the first quarter of academic year to ensure that all the subsidy payments are covered for the financial year. And then also we are looking at training the ECD practitioners, and this is an ongoing process in this particular area. So they are at various levels of training in terms of entry at level 4 to 5 qualifications, and we track and monitor and provide opportunity for that. I have spoken to the ICT access, just to give further information. So the DBE tries to provide, as far as we can, the utilization of digitized materials that we provide to teachers and to learners. And in this instance, pupils are getting information through this digitized materials that we have, and that helps them to facilitate self-study. There are various digital platforms and various materials that we have available, that we make available to provinces, that provinces themselves have also done over and above that which we've provided. And all of this helps us then to ensure that there is access to digitized materials and ICT materials, either zero-rated materials or materials that we own, that we have developed ourselves as DBE, and that we provide, and that this is being facilitated through virtual classrooms, or through broadcasting, or through video streaming, or through online content resources that we make available. We have partners that help us out also to facilitate this, and that's largely through UNESCO, and it's also supported by other EdTech organizations that have partnered with us. Here on the slide, we just mentioned some of the interventions and some of the partners that we have. It has worked very well, especially between grades 10 and 12 and grade 12, in the way in which our learners are prepared for the grade 12 exams. We can see the improvement of the results have definitely these measures that we've put in place, which have started at the onset of COVID, but we continue to run, has benefited our learners. The slide on slide 35, which is the next slide, just speaks to further virtual classroom support that we have, broadcast through TV and radio, online content, support resources that we have, and then the various social media platforms. There's also issues that we are focusing on around the rollout of connectivity, and we're working with the Department of Communications on this, to ensure that connectivity reaches teachers and learners in the rural areas. There's a tutor support that we have as well, a learning buddy that learners can partner with in critical subjects, and also then they have e-learning packages that they can access as learners, or they can get onto various platforms that would provide them with access to online textbooks. So we have various collaborations with partners and with the private sector organizations that help us around being able to, not only a DBE initiative. There are challenges around it, around the connectivity. In very rural areas, we would have to see how, from the side of communications department, they speed up connectivity reaching these rural areas. So we have regular meetings with DCDT to expedite the rollout of South Africa Connect, because that has direct bearing on connectivity within schools. We also have received large donation from Stats SA of devices which they use in the census period, which they've donated to our schools in all provinces. These devices will get into the schools with the focus of them reaching rural areas to assist in taking devices to where we can with the learners. There are over 18,000 schools that are included in connectivity, and these devices will then be able to reach them. On nutrition program, we just give you information on how that is unfolding, and we give you details about the expenditure as at December 2022, around what the actual allocation of the grant is and what the figures of the province, and what the expenditure is, and the balance in terms of this last quarter that we will then have to expedite and ensure that feeding continues. It is a very successful program of the DBE, and so we have a in the next slide, we have a decentralized model or a centralized model depending on what the provinces have chosen. And through this program, feeding happens on a daily basis to millions of learners that have access to food through this. The budget, there are some issues that the auditor has raised, which we are just looking here, around ensuring that we track and we ensure that we provide adequate information around the budget on, you know, what is being provided and where the breakfast is included. And so we continue to look at how we can increase the budget for the menu to improve the current arrangements that are there. And it's in the 3-year cycle. On the outer years, we would look towards increasing that, given that maybe some financial challenges that we have. The next slides then speak to issues around school safety. And here we are just highlighting what it is that we're working with. So there is a national school framework, which I don't have to get into. We have an interdepartmental campaign on the prevention of violence, bullying, corporal punishment, drugs and substance abuse in the school. There's a strategy for the prevention. This is on the following slide. For the prevention of and management of alcohol and drug use among school learners. And we have regular testing, and we can give you information about the number of schools that have been trained for drug testing in the financial year. We also have prevention and management of corporal punishment in the schools, and there is a disaster risk management that we have in place as well. See how well we manage, the various aspects that affect schools. And we have a protocol between DBE and SAPS that assist us in curbing violence and relinking the schools to the police stations, and to have search and seizures and crime awareness campaigns. And the slide just gives you information around the number of search and seizures per province that occurred for this financial year. The provinces all have school safety plans in place for 2023, and this slide just speaks to the various aspects of how we do this, what training happens around disaster risk management, around corporal punishment, prevention of violence. It's an interdepartmental campaign, and the idea is to strengthen the school safety programs at a local level, and to involve the various role players, which includes various other departments that work with us. On issues of social cohesion programs, I'll move on. So this just gives you some information about the extent to which we follow programs within the school that help us to facilitate these sensitive issues around gender-based violence and femicide, and it links it back to our NDP vision of 2030 and how we build safer communities. We monitor the districts in respect of that, and so we give you information in the next slide on that. And then I'll go on to the role of the school governing bodies. So we just looked up in the school governing bodies what the role is in that slide, so everyone can see it. And to ensure that the school governing body plays a role of monitoring oversight of all aspects of the school, and to hold the SMT accountable for the delivery of quality education within the schools on the various boxes that we have highlighted there. Learner dropout, we spent some time talking about that in terms of the definition and the data. And so we just want to explain that dropout is ideally understood as an undesirable departure from the schooling system, and thus it excludes the movement and migration that we see. When our results were released, there was a lot of speculation about the dropout rate and what the actual pass rate was. But we want to point out that this is that was a very simplistic way of understanding. If you think that those learners who came into the system should be the same number of learners that leave, because that doesn't take into account other movement that happens within the system. There is movement that talks to learners going from basic education into higher education in terms of where the TVET colleges are located. That is a much needed career pathing that the country needs. We encourage our learners to take up those kinds of subjects that are offered in the technical colleges, and that then accounts for some of the movement. Parents also exercise their right to move learners from public schools into independent schools, and the private schooling benefits from learners that move out of our system. But also parents exercise the right to do homeschooling, which has become something that has been increasing over the years of parents' choices that they exercise, as well as online schooling, which is another phenomenon. And that accounts for various other movement and the extent to which the data needs to take into account. We have undertaken, or we've resolved as a DBE, that we need to build better data systems on this so that we can factor all of that in, since this has been a topical matter that keeps coming up around how people understand a simplistic calculation of what our results are about. And so therefore, we will do in-depth research on this so that we can build reliable data systems of other movements outside of the system that we run, but can that analysis of data can be impacted when we do our calculations and analysis of how well the system is doing. On the slides here, in terms of the completion of that is measured in terms of the household survey. This is just giving you information about how many youth actually have completed grade 12, and the 18-year-old population, and the figure that is much, it's increasing over the years, so it is higher than 56%. And that it shows, it begins to look at consistent improvement over time if you look at earlier outcomes of household survey data and what the current one is looking at. We want to also just talk about the impact of a pandemic on dropout rate. So during the pandemic, there was a large number of parents that were very concerned about sending their children to school. During that time, we had a facility that we provided to parents, giving them the choice to still keep their learners at home, and we provided learning materials. So while they didn't come physically to schools, they were provided with learning material and were still seen as part of the schooling system. But once all learners started to come back, many parents took options of these learners, for whatever the reasons, not to return. Of course, the harsh reality of COVID and the social factors that impacted on what our learners were faced with, increase of learner pregnancy, and also that also impacted on some of these aspects which is there. And so we had a campaign then that looked at how we bring learners back from that got excluded from over COVID period back into the administration, into the administrative system. And there was a huge campaign that the quality teaching and learning also facilitated to ensure that these learners get back. And you can see that the number of NEC candidates have been numbers from 2020 to 2021 to 2022 have increased. And of course, the class of 2022, which was most affected by the pandemic, did us proud in terms of the point that they made around sustaining the numbers, but also sustaining the quality of the pass that they have given us. Then just to talk on the next slide about support of underperforming schools. So no matter what the outcome is of your academic results in the system, each year we will then look at what, in terms of the quality of the pass, are underperformers in secondary schools, and there are 1,711 secondary schools that were identified as underperforming. And the schools, these are schools that obtained less than 65 in 2021. And you can see from what we have done in the 2021 and 2022 academic year, in terms of how we've worked with these schools. In the 2022 outcome, there is no school that is below 70%. And so we pride ourselves with the improvement that's continuing to happen in the system. And we focus on various aspects when we are looking at underperforming schools. So it is about the number of support visits that are there, the number of visits that need to be conducted per annum, the support that subject advisors can provide, and the extent to which circuit managers provide leadership guidance, and the SMTs manage the curriculum. Then if I move on to the slide that talks to the number of provinces that I've visited, the next slide, you'll just see here the number of underperforming schools per province that we have, the number of schools that were visited once, the number of schools that were visited twice in our monitoring, and we give you the percentage as at 25 January. We still continue with this program so that we can continue to track the performance of these schools. There are some observations, of course, that where there is support by circuit managers and subject advisors, that does translate to improvement of curriculum management by the SMTs. The accountability is a lot more strengthened by the subject teachers, and the data utilization of SMTs have improved. And you can see that over the years, as we have looked at underperforming secondary schools, it is dropping, from 2018 to 2020 to 2022. There is a decreased number of chronically underperforming schools. And no matter how you look at it, no matter how high your percentage of pass is, there will always be those that are at the bottom. And if we are striving towards improvement, then even in a good outcome, you have to work with those who are below the mark to help them to even raise the bar higher. And that's what we continue to do for the analysis here. We move on then to support for the teachers. And here we're just indicating that in the underperforming areas, there are about 10 districts that underperformed in mathematics in particular. We've identified the provinces and the number of districts. So there you can see Eastern Cape, KZN, Limpopo, Northern Cape, and Mpumalanga. And what we're trying to do is to have a program that is designed to support these districts. We provide them with study guides, and we help them to develop also and to participate in second chance. We work with the NECT, who are also very busy in supporting us to support these particular districts. This program, we have set times in the year. We will intensify the kind of support through July and August to help those underperforming schools. There's support for grades 8 and 9 in mathematics and science. There's also a mathematics teacher audit that we have, which gives us information on slide 72 around, what exactly our profiles on mathematics teachers are and how we can support and develop these teachers. There's support on grade 8 and 9 EMS, and exactly what the support program is that's designed for 2023 and 2024 to try and see how we can support this subject. Then we have lots of information that we've provided on the QLTC. And in terms of this, so the QLTC, especially over the period of COVID, we've really gone out of our way to reactivate at the lowest and local level of schools and districts the re-establishment of the QLTC. And they have assisted us to really have our finger on the pulse and to get information of what is happening at the local level through the establishment of the QLTC. And the activities that they are involved in is about the establishment of school governing body structures, looking at community participation in the SGB, looking at inclusivity within the schools, looking at the curriculum and the assessment planning, also looking at how to develop the QLTC programs within communities and the schools, the management of rape cases and the vetting of teachers, looking at vacant posts, late registration of learners, timetabling, dysfunctional schools, support to the system, issues of infrastructure, overcrowding, water and sanitation, ICT distribution, capturing and the management of information, access to documents. The list is endless in terms of what the QRTC is involved with, and the current status of all of these projects that they are busy with these activities is given there, as well as the interventions in relation to that. The next part of this presentation talks to the oversight visit, which the Honorable Chairperson has referred to in her opening remarks. So we give information about exactly what was experienced by the Portfolio Committee in the oversight visits that happened in KZN. The Chairperson has already mentioned the districts that were visited and the schools there. And then what we've done in the tables that follow is to list in terms of the issues in particular from this oversight visit that have been highlighted around issues of learner transport with dedicated learner transport that is required in some instances. You know, this is not only in ordinary schools, but also in special schools. There are issues around infrastructure that was picked up, issues around post-provisioning norms, filling of posts, the nutrition program, safety and security in schools, water shortage, quintile rankings, and all of these issues. We have then given an undertaking that we would work with the KZN province to ensure that these issues are dealt with. In some instances, we've already started with tracking the progress which KZN Department of Education has provided. And we will continue to ensure that all of these issues that were highlighted from the oversight visit are in fact addressed by the KZN Department and reported to us as the DBE in terms of completion of this progress. Then we give also in the next part of the report, we have the school readiness monitoring that we did from the side of DBE. And so here we also just give some information about the number of districts that were visited in terms of those 26 that were sampled. Across the provinces, we give the names of the districts so that everyone can see, you know, which districts we visited, and also the number of schools that were reached per district in terms of the different provinces. So that next slide speaks to that. And then there are some specific findings that we left per province, and these findings range across a number of issues that talk to either issues around shortages of classrooms, or inappropriate toilets, or the lack of proper management that might at specific schools being found, some lack of compliance matters in relation to policy matters, shortage of teachers, issues around schools needing infrastructure, like additional classrooms or fencing. And per province, you can see, I won't go through each province because it might take up too much of our time, but there's a common trend of, you know, the kinds of things that you pick up. So it is around either insufficient classrooms, issues around water supply because a pump broke, or there isn't a borehole or whatever. And we have then to put in place mechanisms to ensure that from the side of the DBE, the infrastructure branch, then works with the provinces, as well as the DBE monitors the extent to which all of this is in fact delivered in each of the provinces. And our prime or main shop steward, if I may call DG that, who leads us on the ground and in fact checks on all of these things as well, gives useful information in the monitoring that happens. So, Honorable Chairperson, I am going to stop the presentation there because all of this just talks to the details per province of our monitoring. We will pull this together in a detailed report, and that then becomes a basis that informs our monitoring plan that we use to go and check whether the provinces have in fact done all of this from the center of the DB. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. We are done. Thank you, Ms. Geyer.
Thank you, DG. Thank you, Ms. Geyer.
Thank you.
Members, that's the
for
presentation
that.
from what is going on now. Go to DG. Can I note hands, members?
It was very long.
We hardly hear you, DG. But it's fine. It's okay. Any interaction from the members?
I can hear you clearly. Can you hear me now? I'm saying I can hear you clearly from my side.
Yeah, I can hear you
clearly,
also
but,
now.
there's nothing. Okay, proceed, Chair. Thank you very much.
Okay. I see the hand of Van Zyl. Only you can proceed.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning to yourself, the members and our guests this morning. I have bad signal, so I have a fear of sounding like a robot too, so please
Recording
stop me
in progress.
if I do. So I've got a couple of questions. Well, the first one would be on the learner dropouts. On the slide, it's interesting to see that from the household survey data, and only an estimated of 50 to 56% of young people graduate matric. So the real pass rate was actually 54.6%. Then a 2022 study by Amnesty International found that South African teachers spend an average of 12% less in the classroom on time, in the classroom, on actual teaching and learning. That's 66% compared to the OECD average of 78%. So clearly this is obviously not any problem. Address this. Have you considered measures to reduce the amount of administration for teachers, which this was highlighted as one of the problems in the study, you know, the support we give them? Then a statement was made, a grade repetition should primarily be understood as a symptom of weak learning rather than a cause of educational problems such as dropouts. How does the department intend to offer support to learners who need additional help? Then in terms of tracking and tracing learners, what measures are in place to ensure that all schools and educators track and trace all learners? When last was the system audited to ensure that this happens at all schools? Does the system record the reasons for dropouts, the learners that's not returning for each grade? And what support does the department offer those learners that indicate that they intend to write matric through TVET colleges after grade 9? Are these numbers or learners recorded and followed up with when they don't return to schools? Then just quickly on readiness, Chairperson, it's a month into the academic year and many serious concerns indicate that the department failed to prepare sufficiently for the year despite statements to the contrary. While late applications can account for issues like overcrowding and late learner placements, it does not account for teacher shortages, infrastructure problems, and a number of safety concerns all over the country. When will the department sort out the late placements, and how will those learners that have missed out on schooling be assisted, you know, the month or the 2 months that they will miss? Does the department have an update on the teacher shortages and when those posts will be filled, a time frame? And what interim measures have been put in place? The safety at schools are a growing concern, and how does the department obviously intend to address that? Then just quickly regarding a CD, there was a slide up there. Could you please give more insight into the type of structures, where they are and where they were identified, you know, where the money has been spent? And then what is the reason for the 32% learner transport need achievement in KZN? Why were only schools in the Northwest and Western Cape trained on drug testing, and what does this all entail? Since Treasury rejected the proposed budget to fill 600 identified critical posts in schools, what type of posts are these, and what is the department's interim solution to ensure quality of teaching? Then just quickly, if the Bella Bill should succeed, I'm speaking specifically to ECDs now and grade R, what is the department's state of readiness on implementing that mandatory grade R? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Principal.
Mulula Stulo le maloko ka moka. This all-important portfolio committee on basic education. Good morning. Chair, let's start by welcoming and appreciating this well-oiled presentation from the department, of course, led by himself, the DG, out in whether it's in the office or out of the office, he will lead. Even if he keeps on cutting, he will continue talking. And sometimes we don't even hear what he's saying, but he leads. We welcome it. But I must further indicate that it is about time that let's, as a portfolio committee, though you have already said it in the statement that you issued, Chair, that we commend the department and for the sterling work done, which saw us having such a well-deserved improvement in the metric class of 22 results. It's something we must take home, if not take it to the bank, because it is a landmark in the history of the performance of this the department. However, the presentation as put before us is true. I believe all members, the beginning of this year, a number of things we have seen for ourselves. As we made school visits during the first week and the second week of schools reopening. Challenges, of course, will always be there. But what we need to be seen appreciating, Chair, is the efforts that is being put by the Department of Basic Education in trying to address them. Somewhere they are falling short and unnecessarily so, but somewhere, of course, they need to be given that credit. Chair, I will in particular refer the department to some of the challenges that we met when we had our oversight in KZN. And coincidentally, Chair, my observation, as I said last time, it's when some of us visited our schools within our own constituencies, the challenges are no different from the ones that we saw in KZN during our portfolio committee oversight. But before I can come to those challenges, which I think the department must rise and try to address them. On LTSM provision, the department is super. We commend you, DG, and your team. You have delivered. The schools which some of us visited, especially at home, they would rather cry foul of inadequate LTSM stationery, not that they were not delivered. First day, almost all the schools visited, and I believe now the norm could be all schools had already received their LTSM, which means they were ready to begin at the beginning. But challenges which are rampant in your department, DG, number one, the issue on ablution facilities and water provision. This one remains a challenge. In as much as we can commend you for the program of boreholes that you have initiated from the Department of Basic Education, because we all know that this is not your core function. The water provision is the responsibility in the main of municipalities. And unfortunately, municipalities have got their own headache in as far as that is concerned. But now you have come with a makeshift arrangement wherein you have initiated the issue of boreholes. In as much as the boreholes are recommended, but now, how safe are those waters that the boreholes are feeding to our kids? Because from the general knowledge, I'm not an inspector of health or a health inspector, so to put it, but from the general knowledge that I get as I move along the corridors is the borehole water is in the main not suitable for human drinking. And are this water from the borehole ever tested to see if they're suitable for drinking by our learners, and let alone even the teachers? That's the first thing which I want us to revisit and try to look into it. Number two, another challenge, Chairperson, which we all witnessed when we were going through our oversight in KZN. For the 4 districts, the 3 districts that we visited, the common denominator has been scholar transport or learner transport. You see, the department kept on trying to duck and dive and saying there is the so-called schools of need and the schools of whatsoever. But in the main, our observation is the challenge of transport is affecting even special schools. And some schools are absorbing all learners of different kinds, even those who are semi paralyzed or whatever you can call them. They accept them, but they, at the end of the day, they fail to provide transport for them. So how then do you accept learners which are partially impaired and with special disabilities? But at the end of the day, you say it is the school of choice. It cannot be. And we have observed that practically in a number of schools. There is one school which worried me dearly during our visits of us. The school where in Herigwala district, where we had our lunch, that school, Chairperson, the principal reported that ever since the schools reopened, more than 66 learners, it's a special school in any case, are failing to come to school simply because of scholar transport. Somewhere it is a very cheap reason, such the transport does not have a battery. The transport does not have tires. You see, at this time of our dispensation, we give such lousy reasons that learners can departments, but at the same time, I must indicate that the supervision comes from as far as the national office at the level of the DBE. Mkambe, if the department at the level of the DBE, after having said all this, can rise and engage with the provincial department such as KZN, they can come out with a workable solution. The last thing which I must say, Chair, it's with regard to, I've talked about the ablution facilities. Somewhere, the problem with the ablution facilities is, number one, There are still a substantial number of pit toilets in KZN, but the program as presented by the advocate shows a lot of improvement that has been done. But we don't only want improvement. What we need is the reality that pit toilets are done away with once and for all, so that we can take the dignity to both our learners and our teachers. But I think I might have said a mouthful, Chair. The department will come in and say to us, how best can we now look into all those misdemeanors and see how best we can resolve them. Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you for your time given.
Okay, Principal Siwela.
Thank you, Chairperson, and let me welcome the report from the Department of Basic Education. Chair, the report paints a picture of everything being well in the department and also in the schools. Of course, we have witnessed how ready the department is, especially in our oversight to KZN. But I want to register a concern with regard to the PPN or post-provisioning in school. Yes, in the report, it is reported that the post-provision has been distributed to all schools in all provinces on time. And teachers have been moved to various schools. As we speak, Chair, these processes of moving teachers from one school to another, in some instances, it is delayed. A case in point is Buhlabela district in Mpumalanga, where some schools are still waiting for teachers to come to their school to fill those positions. And because of the moratorium, the schools cannot appoint new teachers. And this is concerning because those schools have to do without these teachers, and they don't know for how long should they wait before teachers will be dispatched to these schools. And that is the concern that I wish to raise. Probably one will suggest that the provincial departments where such things exist must ensure that the teams that are appointed in districts to deal with this matter really do it and do it on time. It cannot be that 3 weeks or 4 weeks into the new year, schools are still waiting for teachers. And where is the quality of education if that is happening? Now, the second thing that I want to raise, which may not necessarily be in the hands of the Department of Education, is the issue of protests. Learners are being disrupted at schools. Some are even chased out of schools during the course of the day. And this is very problematic in the sense that, you know, we have got grade R, very little children in these schools, and people just walk into the school and just chase everyone out. Where will these young children go? And their future is also at stake. Now, the question, therefore, that I have is the department so helpless in such situations that they cannot protect teachers and learners during school hours in schools? Because people can just walk into a school and force out everyone. Where is the safety issue? Are teachers safe under the circumstances? Are the learners also safe under the circumstances? What is it that the department can do to curb this kind of things happening in our schools. Now, as we speak, schools in Arthur Seat and also Castile Circuit in Bush Park Ridge are out now because people went into those schools and forced everyone out. Can the police not be roped in to protect our school in instances where children are in the schools? Can they not be asked to stop people from entering school, or anybody who enters the school in the name of protest, disrupting schooling, be at least arrested? Because I don't think that disrupting school is part of service delivery. Why should the government allow this thing to continue unabated as if we are living in a lawless country? My recommendation will therefore be the department should find a way of talking to the Department of Safety and Security to look into the matter. Police must be allowed sometimes to move in and stop these things, because the education of our children is being compromised. The schools have been disrupted since day one. They go to school for one day, the next day they are forced out, and so on. Yesterday they went to school, they were forced out, and today they are not in school. That is my concern, Chair. Thank you.
Chair, did you note my hand?
Oh, your hand is not here. I can't see it,
Okay, Chair.
but it's
Can I
fine.
proceed?
You speak after Ngobo.
Okay, no, thanks.
Ngobo.
No, thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, members of the Portfolio Committee, the DDG, and the support staff. Chairperson, it will be very brief because some of these very important issues have been covered by the members that spoke before me. But I mean, for the years of the DDG, some emphasis maybe might need to be made. I won't go into the specific issues. Like I say, most of them have been covered, like the issues of the boreholes, where we were wondering about the safety of water. However, maybe whilst I am here, Chairperson, one must applaud the department and say it's a good move, because at least it makes sure that there is water. We know the problems we have about water in the whole country. And therefore, any attempt to make sure that there is water at school is welcome. However, we were worried about the issue of the safety, like the Honorable Ramasatla was saying, whose responsibility it is going to be to make sure that water is tested and properly treated if it needs to be treated. Maybe the department, that's the issue maybe that the department needs to look into, because we don't want to be trying to be solving a problem whilst other problems arises, which were not intended. Now, the most important things I wanted to emphasize is, look, our observation was that there is work going on during maybe the fine with the presentation. We are very happy, but I'm more interested in slotting in some of the things with regards to the last visit. They are very relevant. the department is actually, generally speaking, doing a lot of good work. One can see that manifesting itself in the form of the results, grade 12 results. But the feel as we were going around is that there is serious work taking place. But then, Chairperson, I wish to raise this issue of after visits, be it the department on its own or maybe the portfolio committee. I mean, there is a feedback. Now, if feedback has been given, and when you go back again, you find that some of the issues which had been raised have not been followed properly. I mean, that discourages very much. That's a polite way of putting it. Actually, it angers Chairperson. So one wanted to maybe just mention that point. There is an observation that during the presentation again, this matter came up of the subject advisors in a particular context. Mine is from an angle of the quality of people we have in the department. Here is my contention, Chairperson. I am saying the problem is a subject advisor. Ordinarily is a teacher. It's a teacher. And therefore, you will take a teacher who appears to be good and promote that teacher if he or she applies to be a subject advisor. Now, I don't know whether the measures the department can assure us of the measures of, selection of these people to make sure that people that get appointed are people of quality. Why I'm raising this point is because of experience. I am a teacher myself, and I know what has been happening with regards to the selection of the subject advisors. Maybe other than that, Chairperson, I just would like maybe to stop here and give it to the other members. I know other members might want to speak, like the honorable member who was or who had already raised the hand, indicated to want to speak. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mapolaba. Mama Sabela.
Thank you, Chair. Greetings, DG and members. Chair, the report gives an impression that all is well in schools across the country. The truth is, all is not well. There is no good story to tell here. Section 29 of the Constitution of the Republic provides that everyone has the right to basic education, but a Black learner's right is violated every year by lazy officials who are getting paid to kill education system in the country. It is time now that they must be punished for their wrongdoing. What causes the delay for scholar transport every year in Limpopo, Mpumalanga, KZN, and Eastern Cape? Is there any audit done by the department to ensure that all learners who need scholar transport are provided with transport? More than 200 learners here in Limpopo, Mubani region, from Mucheudi High School, Mamiriri, Kwalagaleleme, and Mukumi, failed to go to school for the past 3 weeks. Who must account? What causes the delay for the delivery of LTSM every year in Limpopo, Mpumalanga, KZN, and Eastern Cape? What were the consequences for the past 5 years? Because it can't be business as usual that every year learners fail to go to school. They will go to school after 2 or 3 weeks. Money was allocated to deal with issues of infrastructure, Chair. How long is it going to take the department to eradicate pit toilets? Because we are asking this question almost every week. There are mobile toilets introduced by the department during COVID-19. Those cheap mobile toilets delivered in some of the poor rural communities are now without doors. Today, those cheap mobile toilets, Chair, are renting. Owners are getting paid 8,000 and more every month. Who must account for this corruption? If the department is going to pretend as if they don't know that schools are paying rent for those cheap mobile toilets, which are similar to pit toilets because they're dangerous to learners. If the department doesn't have answers today, we need answers next week, Tuesday. So lastly, Chair, we understand that school violence is a societal issue, and the department says parents and communities are not playing their part in curbing school violence. Can the department tell us its plan and what they did for the past 5 years? We are losing teachers and learners daily. Come with practical solutions. Thank you very much.
No, thank you very much, Honorable Mashavela and all the members. I don't see any hand. I take it that members are okay. I think we need to acknowledge the fact that the schooling has started this academic year, and we can bear testimony to that. We were in KZN, and fortunately we visited rural districts, which I think we must commend the department. Without a few issues there and there, that had issues. I know there is a school that we had to ask some departmental officials to attend to, and we must still get that report as the committee when they are done. So it's those few issues really that are issues there and there, but what is important is that the learners were in class and the teachers were in class. This presentation has reported that there is about 1,711 secondary schools that are identified as underperforming. These schools have obtained 65% and less in the examinations. Now, can we be told in more or less which provinces those schools are, or other districts those schools are, and for us as the committee, can we also get maybe you send us that report so that we've got an understanding of this 1,711, where is exactly is located. Has spoken on the issue of the subject advisors. Our view, and which we have made it very clear in case is that the subject advisor in their second, not just like the visits with the teachers, if we must see really a good result. And in this instance, one is specific on the mathematics subject advisors. The 10 districts that you are mentioning that have underperformed in maths, by what percentage? But the senior phase has been identified as the cause for poor performance in the matric maths and science results. Now, to us, it is a concern, given the fact that TIMSS and PEARLS results, let alone that the learner performance we have seen in the last NSC results. The presentation is also outlining that the support program for grade 8 and 9 was designed and implemented in 14 districts. Which districts are those? Now, on the issue of maths and science, you'd remember we had a presentation last year where we requested, in fact, where we made an argument that, and that was when we were, that our view is that people who are foreigners, and I know we couldn't agree because the department, you didn't agree, but I think it's time that we get a report from yourselves of who is actually teaching our learners maths in the whole country. Let's get a number of teachers that are there for maths, and who are they, where are they coming from? Well, I think it's the information that we need for ourselves also to understand who is giving our learners mathematics as a subject. When we were in KZN, you know that part of our visits invites the SGBs. And one can say that we are picking up, it's not for the first time, that, you know, SGBs, they are there, they are elected, they are trained, but the reality is that they also confess themselves that they don't understand what their roles are. So my question with regards to that is how often are SGBs trained by the department, and what are other tools that you use to make sure that they understand what is it that they need to deal with? With regards to how are the schools managing their appointments, and more or less, in case there is a vacancy, how long does it take for a department to fill that vacancy of a principal and a deputy principal in this instance? The National School Nutrition Program, you are saying that the department is using a different model, a centralized and decentralized. Now, what informs that, and how provinces decide on a model? I'm raising this because we were in one of the schools there where the school is is a combined school. It's a combined school, it's a primary and a secondary. And apparently learners are not getting it. They get food, but the food is not enough because I don't know, apparently when they applied, they applied for a primary school, and which then must make a provision for small food, and the learners that are of high school are not getting enough food. I am not really going to speak on the learner transport because I think members have really clarified the issue of learner transport. And I must say, when it comes to KZN, where we're coming from, it is a concern. It is a concern that you have 1,148 schools that are on the waiting list for learner transport. And out of that number, there are still schools that actually did not even bother to apply. So you don't necessarily know the number. But also you would have KZN as a province deciding that meanwhile, the national policy is saying they're covering a learner from 5 kilometers radius from a school. And then KZN covers 3 kilometers from a school, which probably is their prerogative as the province. We don't know. But where I'm trying to get to is I think there is a need that the department looks into this policy and review it where possible. Or rather, you need some sort of a boss berate amongst the officials of the department to discuss how do you deal with the issue of scholar transport, because it is a challenge in bigger provinces and in rural provinces in particular. So you need to look into it. Funding, which of course it's something else, or rather look also into building schools where there is a necessity to build schools. Of course, there is a challenge, and I think Honorable Rosetta has raised it. There is a challenge of a school of need and a school of want because of how the school functions and the outcomes, but also because of whether the school is a technical school or whether the school is what, and then learners would, I mean, those are minor things, but there are bigger issues of our transport is not able to satisfy the need for our learners at a ground level. So whether we satisfy that need or whether we build schools so that we alleviate the issue of transport need, it's something else. So I'm raising those issues and also to say that we have managed to have our own oversight in KZN, and we fortunately had a very responsive team. We had a very responsive team, and I must say, one is also grateful for the team of members that we have in the committee, because we had some quite very robust discussions on our oversight, which assisted a lot in a view and a perception also that is there on the ground of what are members of parliament, what they do. I think we have quite a very robust team in the committee, which helps a lot. So without really speaking a lot, I'm going to allow, I'm not sure, DG, if you are able to hear us. I'm going to allow you to lead then the responses. DG, If he can't, then Magaya, you can respond.
Honorable Chairperson, I have tried to see if DJ has connection. My approach, I think, is that I would ask the colleagues to come in and answer the questions that relate to the areas, because we have covered on a lot of topics that relate to specifics of areas that are run in the department. But just to say on the broad areas that have been asked, so I hear the honorable member speak around, picking up on the household survey and the dropout rate. And I think that what we have undertaken with the department is, because the point, without hammering the point about what is the real pass rate of the department, I think we've got to come to terms with the dropout rate and what are the factors of movement and migration in the education sector. And it's not something that is clean, and it's not something that is informed by only the Department of Basic Education. For instance, TVET colleges do not sit in the Department of Basic Education, they sit in the Department of Higher Education. So therefore, we need databases that talk to each other. We also need a database of what happens in independent schools, which we do not have access to their database, but we need to enter into relationships with them so that when we do the research, we have the information from these various areas who can then help us to come up with a comprehensive indicator of what are the real movements and what are the factors that impact on performance, and how do we actually address assessment of performance in the system. And I think these other additional studies can help us to come up with a better comprehensive understanding of it. Around issues of teacher shortage, I'm going to ask Ms. Monday if she could please come in on the questions there. Around the issues of late placement, I will ask Mr. Ndlebe to come in there. There are issues around ASIDI, which I think we have Mr. Mafoka who can answer. Oh, Mr. Van der Westhuizen is in the house. He can answer to that. The issues around ECD, and LTSM, I will respond to. So ECD on the grade R, we are working towards universal access. The part of what Mr. Van der Westhuizen's team does, and he can speak in more detail to track the extent of the facilities of grade R that is being upgraded within schools or built within schools. That's part of our universal access program to ensure that we reach that mandatory status for grade R to be offered in all our primary schools, but you cannot offer it if you don't have the facilities. In many instances, we have made inroads into providing the facility, and we continue to improve the facilities within our schools on that, but I'll ask Mr. Van der Westhuizen to give more details on that. On issues of LTSM and what the reasons are why there are particular provinces that are plagued with some difficulties. I think we have to understand that when we talk about LTSM and in particular about the textbooks, we're not talking about a zero base. So it's not that students start an academic year and there are no books that are available for them. We are talking about a top-up of 10%. And in the instances where there are difficulties about providing the full top-up, the reasons vary. In some instances, you may have a book that may not be in print timelessly by the publisher or the printer because there wasn't a demand for a long time. And so they have to reprint or have to get the book reprinted to be able to provide for the books to be delivered. And there have been some challenges around the availability of paper within the printing industry that has delayed some of those printing and delivery of particular books where it had to be printed before it could be delivered to schools. In other instances, like in the case of Mpumalanga, there are budget difficulties that they have around the textbook top-up, and they are working on how to resolve their budget problems to begin to make a dedicated allocation that is more reliable around that. But in the main and in large, on LTSM, you have the top-up delivery that is, it is on 100%. And in instances where it isn't on 100%, there's a small margin that has to be delivered. And so we are not reporting positively, we are reporting on the actuals in percentage that is there. And if you look at the slides, you can see the provinces that are sitting mostly on 100% in terms of that. Same with stationery. The stationery is easy to track in terms of the delivery, and we've spent lots of time tracking delivery in the schools around the stationery. That's on LTSM. I'll leave the issues around the pollution and water and all of that to Mr. Van Westhuizen to answer, as well as the issues around the transport and the pit toilets. Colleagues, if I can ask you to come in terms of that, maybe Ms. Monday, if you can start.
Thank you, Ms. Geyer, and good morning to the Honourable Chairperson and Honourable Members. With regard to vacancies at schools, there is really no excuse for a position not to be filled at a school. And the reason why I say this is because our post-provisioning is done in such a way that by the 30th of September, all our schools should know what posts they have, and then they know which vacancies they have. This gives our provinces enough time to plan, to identify our teachers that are additional to the staff establishment, and also we give them preliminary lists of our Funzula Shaka graduates for placement in the following academic year. So if there is a vacancy at a school and a teacher has not been moved because she or he is additional to the staff establishment and it's taking time to do that, there should be a temporary teacher that comes in and fills in while that process is underway. And that goes for all our vacancies. Because they are funded, the provinces must make sure that there is a teacher. So there is no excuse from a province that there is a vacancy in a school. With regard to the filling of our promotional posts, here in general, our practice is that we give our provinces 3 months to fill a position. Reason being the processes that are involved, we have to advertise widely to make sure that we get sufficient and proper applications in to fill these positions. However, here again, if we have a vacancy of a principal, we have somebody in the school who is acting and gets that acting allowance. That is budgeted for. Also, then as it goes down, if there is a teacher that's acting, for example, in a deputy or a head of department post, then we bring in a temporary teacher to assist with her teaching responsibilities while he or she acts. So really, there should be no reason for any vacancies at our schools. With regard to the funding of our posts, if we get a response from our Treasury that no additional funding is given, our provinces take that into consideration, and that is taken into account when they do their post-provisioning. So when post-provisioning is done, all the positions that are declared on the post-provisioning are funded positions. So there should be no reason for them to be vacant. Then just to come in on the quality of subject advisors, Honourable Chair, this has been mentioned quite a few times, and it has been also discussed with our provinces that there is a concern about the quality of individuals that are appointed. It is very clear in the personnel administrative measures what the requirements are for such an individual to be appointed as a subject advisor. And of course, it would be very important that those requirements are met before that individual is in fact appointed. Of course, it is very difficult, as you know. Recruitment is very subjective. The individual may look very good on paper, but when it comes to practice, the individual can't really, give the quality performance that they should be doing. But that is why we have QMS, where we assessing performance of individuals, and it's very important that corrective measures be taken if the individual is not performing. So, Honourable Chair, that is my responses on vacancies. I trust that I have assisted you. Thank you.
Good morning, Honourable Chair and honourable members of the committee. I will quickly address some of the specific questions on infrastructure. I noted a question from Honourable Van Zyl that talked about the type of structures that are provided. So I would like to just respond to that, to say that as a national department under the ASIDI program, we have constructed 315 brand new schools. The majority of those schools are conventional brick and mortar structures. There are some of the smaller schools where we opted for a modular construction. There are a couple of manufacturers in South Africa that have got patented solutions where you basically prepare a platform and a floor and then assemble the panels to form the various buildings. So we've done some of those. The majority is conventional. On the sanitation programs, we also in general constructed brick and mortar toilets. And there are some of the smaller schools where we have then embarked on what is called alternative building technology. So there are some manufacturers that have a complete solution that is manufactured in a factory, then transported to the site. So these alternative building technologies, we have also utilized some of that under the SAFE program. So if the honourable member would like some more details, we can provide photographs of a lot of these facilities. There was a question also from Honourable Moratsetla that said that there are still many pit toilets remaining. I think what is important, just for the sake of clarity here, is that in general, the provinces are responsible for infrastructure. So they assess the needs, they prioritize those needs, they come up with their project list, and they allocate their budget, and they do it. In 2011-2012, there was a specific intervention by the National Department, that is the ASIDI program. And the principle of the ASIDI program is to address those schools that had no toilets. So there's about 1,000 schools that came onto the program under ASIDI, under this criteria of no toilets. And what I can announce for today, I've got 1,053 schools on the ASIDI program for sanitation, and 1,052 has already been completed. There's one outstanding project that the IDT is wrapping up, and we would like to see that one completed also before the end of this financial year. That will bring to an end the whole of the ASIDI intervention on sanitation. Those are at the schools that was reported at the time, no toilets. So now we have a huge variety of schools with toilets. Some has got only basic pit toilets, and some have got a combination of basic pits, and some upgraded VIPs, even some flush, whatever. So around about 2018, there was a second intervention which went under the name of SAFE, the Sanitation Appropriate for Education. And the focus of SAFE was those schools that have got toilets, but only basic pit toilets. So what we say, those schools dependent on basic pit toilets. So on that program, we have 3,357 schools on that SAFE program. And where we are at the moment is that we have completed 2,460 of those schools where we have then eradicated those basic pit toilets and built brand new set of appropriate toilets. Coming back to the answer offered to Honourable Member van Zyl is that those toilets are then the majority of them brick and mortar, and then some of those, specifically on the smaller schools, we have utilized some of these alternative building technology, which is basically a prefabricated, mostly concrete panels that can get assembled, goes a bit quicker. Just in terms of a number, if we look at the over 1,000 schools under our city and then 2,500 schools under SAFE, the estimate is that about 50,000 appropriate toilets have been constructed under those two programs to date, really adding to the improvement in the dignity of the learners. So that takes me back to the question from Honourable Murat-Zetzler. It is true that after you've now addressed those schools with no toilets, and you've addressed those schools that are dependent and have nothing else but basic pits, there's still thousands of schools that have a combination of toilets. And part of that combination, there's definitely many schools that still have basic pit toilets. So we are in constant discussion with the provinces, and our guideline is very clear that all those basic pit toilets must be eradicated, must be demolished, and must be replaced by proper toilets. It may be interesting to note that we experience, in some instances, severe resistance from principals or even communities to the eradication or to the demolition of those basic pits. And various motivations were offered, either sentiment, we collected the money, we built them ourselves, or even some religious concerns. So from our side, our policy is that all basic pit toilets must be eradicated, and it is true that there's some schools out there that still have them, and that is part of the provincial programs. Honourable Mashabela also commented on the toilets, specifically in Limpopo, to say that some of the COVID toilets are still there. As a national department, we assisted under COVID with an emergency sanitation program where we rented these toilets and made them available. None of those toilets are still out there. We have stopped that program around about October of that year, and we are not paying 1 cent to nobody for anything. If there are still toilets out there, they may be part of a provincial program. So just in the Limpopo case, the member will be aware of the Kumapi issue, where in terms of a court interdict, the province had to provide a plan for the provision of appropriate toilets. And we have in June last year and then again in December last year submitted progress report on that case. And part of that plan is the provision of mobile toilets at schools that do not have. So it is possible that the member is referring to some of those. The provincial department is under severe pressure to make sure that those toilets remain there. Just a quick comment about grade R. It is important to note that the number of grade R facilities in the order of 40 to 50,000 out there, and the budgeting process has not caught up with that. So at the moment, we've got a very limited budget for grade R infrastructure of less than 100 million for the whole country. That has been allocated to 244 projects that are currently being implemented. And in general, it is a bit slow. We have reported at the end of January an expenditure of about 40 million on this, which is about 39%. So there's still a lot of work that must happen in maturing the system of delivering infrastructure at an ECD level. Chair, I believe I've covered the specific questions dealing with infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I ask Mr. Ndlebe to come in and answer the questions around the SGBs, but also to talk to the tracking and tracing of learners, and also there was on the late placement of learners around admission. Mr. Ndlebe.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable members. Good morning. Maybe let me start with the task that the Chairperson has given us as a team to look at a school, one way, where there was no schooling since the schools reopened, that we managed to stabilize it. There is teaching and learning that is going on right now. And we will be going back to that school this weekend to work with the teachers, the SGB, and some community members. And then the report will then follow, Chairperson. We were able to even unblock some of the challenges, such as the unfilling of the principal and the deputy principal's post. So we have a management plan, and we believe those will be filled in as soon as possible. With admissions, Honorable Chair, you'll remember that you gave us a task to work with the Western Cape Department after they only placed the last group of learners last year in April. So the results is such that this year already children are placed in the Western Cape, which we believe is quite an improvement. Now, when we come to the Gauteng Department, besides what Ms. Geyer has reported about late registration, about 5,000 appeals that were received by the MEC, which then delayed the placement of learners, there is an issue that the Gauteng Department delayed to start the admission process last year. They only started in August when they were expected to start in April. The reason that they gave was that the delay was with the people who work with their website trying to recreate the online system, and that took a little bit of time. But as we speak, the challenge of placement has been resolved due to what Ms. Geyer has reported, changing into some specialist classrooms, negotiating with SGBs to take more learners in the meantime, and the opening of satellite. So at the moment, we don't have a crisis. It's just a few learners that still needs to be taken in. So the problem was just the lateness of the department to begin with that. And those are the issues, Ms. Geyer.
Can you talk to the issue as well around how often they are trained, and also the extent to which we do tracking and tracing of learners around the register and all that?
Thanks, Ms. Geyer. The training of SGB is a continuous process that takes place throughout their term of office, which is 3 years. The Department of Basic Education provides provinces with a list of topics like a syllabus that they need to go through during the period where there are SGBs. And it is a continuous process that must happen. But what we picked up from the school that raised the issues of training in Herigwala was that we were given a indication and a list and registers that training did take place, especially around the roles and responsibilities. But what was happening is that people are differing in opinions when it comes to the implementation of the training that is there. So the SGP member that was raising this question is that he was at loggerhead with the management. So there's a conflict between the management and the governance part of it. And our solution was that we will then prioritize the school like any other and follow up on that. And also check the other schools whether the training has happened as we have prescribed how training should take place. So it is a 3-year training that has to take place with SGBs. Other issues of expulsions and all that, it's a problem of schools that are not adhering to policy. And that's when we run around the country to deal with such types of misconduct. in order to ensure that management and school governing bodies don't do that type of a thing. Late registration, again, if I have to add, in the presentation by Mrs. Geyer, we indicated that for the first time, we're getting a lot of learners that were in independent schools that, for example, they want to come back to public schooling. And most of these learners had to wait for January for the parents to get paid before they can settle the bills in independent schools. Then they can get their reports back and then placement could take place. So that has really affected our placement in a big way. Thank you, Chairperson and honorable members.
Thank you very much, Mr. Diti. Can you please come in on answering the issues around the NSNP program and the extent to which the latitude is with the provinces to decide on a decentralized or centralized model?
Yeah, Chairperson, this is the issue that we're going to take up with NEO. What honorable members have picked up is that schools that are combined schools, a primary school combined with a junior secondary, it depends on how it has been registered, whether it was registered as a primary school or not. So the MIS dictates that. So when nutrition is provided to such schools, they're categorized as primary and they're given food for primary schools, even though there are secondary school children that then suffer in the process. So the recommendation that came from the honorable members was that, can't we look at that if it's a policy issue? Can't we look at that we rather feed the children at secondary level rather than primary, then the primary school will benefit. But if we do it the other way around, then the secondary children then suffer because they don't get large portion of food that fulfills them. So it's a thing that you're going to take here with Dr. Winkle and NEO to see how it can be corrected, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Diti. Would you like to add on that explanation that Mr. Ndlebe gave? Okay, Chairperson, it doesn't seem as if Mr. Diti can come on. So I think we have covered all the questions.
So sorry, sir. I'm so sorry, Ms. Geyer. I thought it was directed to somebody else. Good morning, Chairperson, and good morning, honorable members. Yes, I think Mr. Ndlebe has covered the response adequately, and it is something that we can look at. But as far as I know is that we would then distinguish the senior school age group when we do the allocation. Provinces actually do that. Then they would distinguish it so that we can cover those that are in the senior cohort in terms of the budgeting. And we can look closer into it as to those provinces that have actually indicated, that have actually shown that there is a budget deficit, and we can have that discussion followed up. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I think we have answered all the questions that were posed to us, so I'll hand back to you. Thank you.
Ms. Gay, there's questions from Honorable Yabo here. I'm sure you can see them on your screen. He's also struggling with network. But he wants to know if there are plans afoot to integrate data sharing between the department and the Department of Higher Education to track the attrition of learners through cross migration into the TVET sector. The second one is the clarity required pertaining the integration of LSN into mainstream schools. Is it part of the plans of the department to move in that direction? What are the key outputs expected out of the QLTC, and how is that progress tracked? What plans are there to start using alternative building technologies to close the infrastructure gap? So can you quickly respond to those?
Yes, Chairperson. So in terms of plans to integrate data sharing, I did indicate that we plan to do an in-depth research into the whole area of understanding migration between the systems and where these learners go. That would include looking at what the DHET has in terms of TVET colleges as a database, and what the movement is and where these learners come from. We have the SAM's database from basic education that we already use successfully. And so it is about conducting first the research to understand migration and all the factors that impact on migration, and then to look at the various data systems, which are not only within the TVET system, but also within the independent system, because those are the three areas, as well as to get better information on what is happening on online schooling and better information to understand what is happening on homeschooling, which are also systems that are now popular amongst choices of learners and parents. And that all that information then we would in a research report be able to information that will help us on getting a better understanding of migration. On the issues of LSEN integration into mainstream schooling, on that one, that is a principle that we have in terms of integrating learners who can come into mainstream schooling from special schools, or if there are learners within communities that need to be accommodated into mainstream schooling, that already happens within the system, where it can be accommodated for. Of course, the school must be able to accommodate. So, for instance, if it is a deaf learner who must be accommodated within the schooling, mainstream schooling, you will not be able to do that if there isn't a sign language person that is dedicated to accommodate for the learner. And the choices of parents have been to rather take these learners to specialized schools that accommodate for the learners, because the support and the devices and the sophistication of how an LSEN school is accommodated for with more favorable ratings to provide for specialized services there is what the choice of parents have dominated. So although the policy and the principles are there around the integration of mainstream schooling for LSEN learners, the uptake in most instances have not been by choice of parents that favorable. The question around the QLTC. Well, the QLTC was established to try and see the extent to which they could facilitate and work with communities around the various issues that that are cross-cutting, socio-economic, educational, that communities are faced with, and their task is to support communities to revive structures within communities, to work within together with the different departments that are affected and are supposed to provide support services in many instances outside of education, but that works with education to ensure that many of these matters are sorted out. Issues around gang-ridden school, areas that are gang-ridden around the schools, issues around taverns that are around close to the school area, issues around protests and community service delivery protests and community issues that have impact and spill over into the school, issues around gender-based violence, bullying, a shortage of teachers, they might be unique and specific to the school and not a generic problem that is for the entire area. But their task is to pick up on these individual issues and to see in the system at which level closest to the school that can be alleviated. Often you don't have to elevate it to the national, neither do you have to elevate it to the province, but you can actually working together with the community leaders or with issues around bringing in SAPs or bringing in the district, the circuit manager or the subject advisor to resolve the issue at hand, which is specific to a school, or the matters which the QRTC then look at. Once they've identified an issue in a specific school, you will notice that the way in which the report is to highlight the issue, develop a report that is given into the system at the district level and at the provincial level and a national level, and in the monitoring to track the progress until the problems are alleviated. And then in terms of looking at alternative building technologies, I'll ask Mr. van der Westhuizen once again to come in on that one.
Thank you, Chair. Just a few comments on alternative technology. I think it's a very valuable discussion because the need for infrastructure is still vast. We've made good progress. It remains a moving target, and there's still a lot to do. On the topic of alternative technology, I think we need to just differentiate a few terms there. If I can use the example of sanitation, maybe we are all very much in favor of a nice flush toilet, but there are alternative sanitation technologies that are equally good and maybe more appropriate under the circumstances. So we need to differentiate between sort of the sanitation technology versus the building technology. We are currently working with the Water Research Commission, and we're doing a couple of pilot projects where we are testing specific sanitation technologies as alternative to either flush or ventilated improved pit. And there are a few products on the market that we are piloting at the moment where you have a flush toilet, but with a closed circuit. So you're not flushing the water away every time. You prime the system with water, and then you keep circulating the same water through a treatment plant. So that enables us then to install flush toilets in an area which is water scarce, where in the past we couldn't do that. So in the past, in those dry areas, we opted for dry sanitation. So we're working towards that, and we are working then with the Research Commission on some of those pilots. The other issue that is important is when you talk about alternative building technology, there are building technology that is focused on prefabricated modules or prefabricated panels, then that gets assembled on site. Some of them are good and some of them are not good. I think we all have experienced mobile classrooms. There are some mobile classrooms that are almost as good as a brick and mortar classroom, and then there are some mobile classrooms that are almost falling apart on its way to the school. So we must be very careful in terms of alternative building, whether in terms of the life cycle cost, you are not penny wise and pound foolish. So we are trying to work with that as well. I mentioned in my report earlier on the schools under our city, we've built some schools making use of patented panels, and we believe all those are good quality. So we are exploring some more along that line. What we also find that on the sanitation side, you can have a brick and mortar structure, or then this alternative building technology that comes out of the factory, or you can have a hybrid in between, where you have a brick and mortar structure, but some of the sanitation components, maybe the filtration system, the urine diversion system, the ventilation system, those comes out of a factory. So the hybrids, and some of them also proved to work quite well. One of the issues that we constantly need to balance in the South African context is speed of delivery versus job creation. There are some pilot projects that were done in some of the provinces, building of schools where the whole school were constructed in a record time, and some of those you actually create a shutter work for the entire classroom, and then with ready-mix concrete, you pour that into the shutter and you cast a classroom in one go. Now that way you move very quickly through the construction, and it is solid concrete, very good quality, but in terms of job creation, pretty much almost zero. So I think that's part of the balance that we need to do. But I think we are on that space, and we need to constantly work together to say, how do we balance this between delivery and empowerment and creating opportunities. And there are horses for courses. In the case of the school overcrowding, I think there's such an urgency there. So we may need to focus more on delivery, and then some other issues that's got a little bit more time, we can focus more on job creation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Chairperson, if you'll just allow for one more comment on the QLTC, Mr. Jabo Flakula just wishes to give further details on that as well. He's very passionate about that project. Thank you. Mr. Flakula.
Thank you, DDG. Thank you, colleagues. And DDG, thank you very much for outlining what the work of the QLTC is. But I think it's also important that we go to specifics in terms of the interventions that the QLTC has done to date. I would also want to start just with the event of Gauteng. We'll all note that in Gauteng, they are facing serious challenges in terms of learner admission, because Gauteng is an economic hub. Only over the weekend, we managed to interact with communities in the Oliven, in Centurion, a very explosive environment where parents wanted to take the law into their hands and whatever. And we came there, the better part of the week, we engaged with parents, and we managed to calm the situation, and a mechanism has been brought in where learners are now being allocated spaces in schools. Not only do we do that, DDG, even in JTG in the Northern Cape, we had a serious situation in terms of issues around drug abuse and whatever. That matter was referred to the deputy minister, who's a district model champion there, and there were campaigns that were conducted. The number of campaigns that are taking place on bullying, gender-based violence in the country, the QLTC is taking a lead. You will remember the issue of the tavern in the Eastern Cape, where a number of learners died in that tavern. There's a campaign that is going to be taking place in which the minister and the deputy minister will be taking the lead. As we speak, the QLTC, together with Social Cohesion and Safety, they're down in the Eastern Cape, making preparations, meeting with communities. There's an issue also in Mutse, which has been going on for quite a long time. We are involved with the communities of Mutse. There are a number of issues that the community of Mutse has raised, and we do engage with the community of Mutse with respect to that. We do not only intervene at that level, we also identify the curriculum challenges that are faced by learners. We have a partnership that we have just tried together with the University of Johannesburg. We are finalizing the implementation plan. The University of Johannesburg is going to be training subject advisors and teachers on physical science with specific focus on chemistry. And they initially identified only one province, Mpumalanga. And we persuaded them to also put in other provinces. They are now putting 5 provinces where they will be training and also providing the necessary resources in schools. You'll understand that university, they are more strong on research. They did not identify too many schools, but they've identified only 3 schools per province that will be able to start the project with. Should the project yield satisfactory results, then they will try and expand the number of provinces and the number of schools. We have also a partnership with Ngangezwe Foundation. Ngangezwe Foundation is beginning to train the TLOs in schools on leadership development. We are in partnership with EMGD. Now, what is the intention of the partnership? Is that we want our RCLs in schools to be trained on leadership development so that they become the first point of call in terms of challenges that are being confronted by schools. Once we develop the next layer of leaders within the level of school, some of the social ills that are there, that are being experienced in schools, they'll be at least be managed at the level of the youth. Now, the TLOs, teacher liaison officers, after they have been trained, they will then train the RCL. The process has started in the Northwest. The training has taken place on the 9th, as we speak, on the 9th in Mampati. They will also be training another cohort of TLOs. It happened in the Western Cape 2 weeks ago, and now it's happening in Northwest. The plan is to have it all over the country so that when RCLs are elected in schools, those RCLs becomes active. We want to create a community that is active and a community that is participating in the issues of education and beyond in their communities. Now we are showing basically visibility using programs to engage communities. This is basically where we are. And as the DDG has indicated, we're working closer with directorates. Once we pick up an issue, we refer it to the directorate and the province and the district, and then at some point, we'll be expecting some kind of intervention that comes in. Thank you very much, DDG. This is the long and short that I would like to share with the portfolio committee. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I think we have done justice to the questions. I noticed that DG is in the house. I'm not sure if he is able to have connectivity, but I'd like to hand to DG, if you would allow, Chairperson, just to give our final comments from the DBE.
No, thank you very much, Ms. Geya. I'm sorry. I'm in a very difficult area, as I indicated before. I'm sure Honorable Ubabungobo, there's an area called Emanyiseni in Esbamo High School, so I'm battling with connectivity. But Ms. Geya has responded comprehensively to some of the questions that I have listened to. Just to say that in terms of the response of Mr. van der Westhuizen, introduction of alternative technology to the traditional, building method will also require a lot of change management. And I'm sure honorable members would be aware that some of the communities have not embraced alternative technology. So social facilitation, a lot of change management, that's what we need to do going forward. And I'm doing that humbly and with the greatest humility, also requesting public representatives to help us in this change management process, crusade, if you like, to get our communities to embrace alternative technology to the traditional method of either providing sanitation or providing infrastructure buildings in general. Otherwise, thank you very much, Chair, for indulging us. Indeed, as Ms. Geya said, we are done. That's how far we go with our response to the questions and comments raised. Thank you, Chair.
No, thank you very much.
I see the hand of Honorable Ngobo is still up. I don't know what's happening.
Chairperson, if I may crave your indulgence, it's not a legacy hand, Chair. I had raised it before the DG wound up. It was after the conclusion of the responses. Chairperson, I just wanted to chip in only one thing. It was pricked by the responses which were given by Mr. Ndlebe. When we were in one of the schools, I think it was the last part one, the DDG in KZN in our visit stressed that they do not, he does not allow the taking over of the powers and functions of the SGB by the provincial department before they can motivate quite strongly why they are doing so. Now, there is a school which Mr. Ndlebe referred us to as a school where they are having intervention. And of course, it's not for the first time that he does so, but not in that same school. Now, already the department, I know for sure, the department is anticipating in introducing what I can call this, it wants to take over the functions of the governing body in performing some functions. And one would wish that maybe Mr. Ndlebe, who is assisting them, is allowed to complete the process. Before then, the province can freely perform what they believe is their function. I just wanted to add that, Chairperson, but the provinces, not only this one, are not quick enough to go and arrest unwarranted situations which happen in schools in some cases. I just wanted to say that, Chairperson.
Okay, Babungova. All right. I think the department has taken note of what you are raising. Thank you very much, DG, Ms. Gea, and the team for responses. I also think that you have responded to all the questions. Please send us the maths teachers information. We need it. Please send us that information, Ms. Gea. And then we are supposed to have a meeting next week, Tuesday, but we are not going to have that meeting on Tuesday because there is a joint sitting, or rather plenary, next week, Tuesday, which then makes us at 10. It's at 10 o'clock in the morning. So, which means we will have to apply for an alternative date to have our meeting. And the reason for that, members, you would know, we need, I think on the 24th, we will be starting with our public hearings, 24th of February. So we need to be briefed by the team how far the work is, is in terms of processing the written submissions. We're going to look into that. We are going to make a communique as to when exactly the date will be. We're going to also inform the department, but it's obviously not going to be now on Tuesday because of these developments of the joint sitting at 10, which will deal with the issues of SONA. Members also must take note that, like I've said, on the 24th, we are starting with the public hearings in Limpopo. And in advance, I want to tell members that starting from the weekend of the 24th till the 2nd of April, which is 6 weekends consecutively, we are going to have public hearings. The first one will be in Limpopo. The second one is Free State. The third one is Northwest. The fourth one is Mpumalanga. The fifth one is KZN. And the last one is Gauteng, meaning we will be on the road every weekend for 6 weekends. It will need all of us to be very much dedicated, committed, because we are not going to change the program, not unless something really is beyond us. For parties that have alternate members, please make that arrangements. If you can't go and an alternate has to go, then make the arrangement that the alternates must go. But I'm just cautioning everybody that starting from the 24th till the 2nd of April, every weekend, we are going to be on the road. The intention is to, by the 2nd, to have finished 6 provinces, and that has been approved by the chair of chairs. So, which means we will be left with 3. That is for when we come back after the April holidays, after the Easter holidays. And we are looking to be done by this process by June. It looks a bit ambitious, but I think it's doable. We are going to do it. Should we put all of us our hands on deck and be committed? If you must get boosters, the old ones now, please, if you must get boosters, please go and get boosters, so that you are ready and energetic for the traveling. Be that as it may, maybe I must now release the department. Like I've said, we are going to communicate an alternate date for next week instead of Tuesday, so that we deal with the issues of the program, so that we are not so much late. But if we can't, we're gonna have to have a meeting that deals with the briefing on how did we go with the bills, and it has to be next week. Unfortunately, so we'll find a slot, we will check, and we will apply for that slot, even if it's at night, if we must work at night, but we must not be far from our program. We'll have to work as our program. We have to follow, our program. So let me release then everybody and left with the committee, so that we deal with the issues of minutes, and then so that we can go to closure. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, DG, Ms. Gea, and the team. Thank you so much.
Long live the chair. Long live honorable members. Long live Ms. Gea and the DBE team. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, DG.
Thank the DG.
Zobabulisa lababu engo.
Chairperson, I know where he is. He's in deep rural areas, far north.
I'll tell them that you'll come and see them very soon. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, members. The minutes are of the 24th of January. We have dealt with the briefing by the department and Umalusi on the National Senior Certificate Examinations outcomes. Page 1 was the attendance of members, and page 2, together with the officials of the department and Umalusi and parliamentary staff, we opened the meeting, and then we had the minister that made a briefing, and also Prof. Balim from Umalusi. And then that was the address by the minister and Prof. And then we had the presentation by Dr. Rakometsi and Ms. Matalane from Umalusi. And then the department by that, I mean, the presentation from the department was made by the DG and Dr. Polia. Those were the observations by the committee. And the responses, which were led by the minister, and then the DG, and then Dr. Polia, and then Prof. Balim, and then Dr. Rakomezi, Ms. Madalane, and we concluded the minutes, I mean the meeting, and we adjourned at 2:09. Can I get any corrections? Someone wants to correct the minutes? Can we then adopt the minutes? Can we adopt the minutes, members?
Chairperson,
Principal?
my hand unconspicuous, though unconspicuous, is up. I move that this minutes be adopted as a true record of what transpired on that day in question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any seconder? Haibo, someone to second?
Hello, Chair, I second.
Thank you very much. Then the second set of minutes was the meeting of the 6th of December, which was, we considered the first, no man, we had a status on the Bella bill processing and the status on the international study tour, and then we considered the first term program. Okay. So these are the members that attended the meeting, page 1 and page 2, and the officials. And then we opened the meeting. And then we adopted the minutes of the 1st of November, the 8th of November, the 15th of November, the 22nd of November, and the 29th of November. And then there was a consideration and adoption of these terms program, which we did, we adopted it. And then we had a briefing on the status report on the Bella bill, the processing, which was done by Mam Chekwane. And then we made those observations, and then the responses. And then we concluded that was now on the Bella bill. And then we had another briefing on the international study tool, which was also done by Mambude Chekwane. And those were the deliberations. So we then, on our concluding remarks, Of course, we were wishing each other a very good festive season and so on. And then the meeting adjourned at 9:56. Any corrections? In the absence of corrections, can we get a mover and a seconder?
Chairperson, this time around, my hand is conspicuous. I rise to move that these minutes be accepted as a true record of what transpired on that day in question.
Thank you very much, Principal. Any seconder?
Chairperson, I hereby wish to second the adoption of the minutes has been proposed by Ntate Settler.
Thank you very much, Siyabonga Mapoloba. Thank you very much, Llewellyn. Thank you very much, members, to all of you. What is this now?
Chair, just one last draft report on the results released.
Oh, okay. Oh, this is a draft report on the basic education on the official release of the NSC. Page 1 is it's the members that attended the release. This thing was not on the agenda. Llewellyn, you are coming with your own things now here. The background, there's the introduction, and then there's the background, why we attended the what, and then we got a briefing. We got a briefing from the DG, which was a technical briefing in Randburg at Mosaic Church, whatever it is. We got a technical briefing from the DG. The whole delegation was there. And then we got the address by the minister, which was also on TV. The 80.1 event. That's the 80.1 event of our country. So that's the report. We are reporting it to the committee for it to be noted. Thank you very much, Llewellyn. Thank you very much, members. We are adjourning the meeting till further notice. Like we said, we're gonna let you know when
Chairperson, if I may, I just wish to throw in only one thing in passing. Chairperson, we have just been from KwaZulu-Natal, where there was this visit. I just wish to, I don't know to say whether to say it for record, but the security in KwaZulu-Natal was very poor. I can't compare it with anywhere else where I have had an oversight visit. I don't know whether anything can be done about that for the future. I felt it was poor. And then congratulate myself that I hosted the oversight visit, portfolio committee member on oversight visit, Chairperson.
Okay.
My chair. I'm not so sure indeed if this could be the right platform, but to be honest, Mapolova, Date Mapolova, a Zulu boy, is on spot on. We were compromised. I'm afraid if it is not you who's going to say is the right platform, it means it will just be a praise singing or just a complaint, like a speech at the funeral. And because we wanted this to be noted down, which one can be the best platform? We couldn't squeeze it into our portfolio committee. But where is the right platform? Just unless if you would say we are still going to make a reflection, then I will be happy.
No, thank you very much, Honorable Ngobo and Muratsetla, for raising it. I think it's a matter that probably we will have to raise with the security section in Parliament, just to raise our dissatisfaction with the security issues that we were confronted with in KZN. I will do that from my office. We will initiate a letter and write it to the security section.
Thank you very much, Bachel.
Okay.
Thank you, Chairperson.
No, thank you very much, Siyabonga. Llewellyn?
Sorry, Chair, we just didn't get a mover or a second on that draft report. If you can just quickly get a mover and a second for that, Chair, just to formalize it.
Oh, I saw you said no for it to be noted. Can we get a mover and a seconder?
For doing what?
For the DBE report, the NSC results, where we went to run back for the results. The latter report that was presented.
Chair, I might be lost. What is our role? Are we just supposed to move that we note it and somebody second we noted it? Because it's basically not our report. Somebody is reporting about what actually transpired. But maybe I should be schooled. What is supposed to be our role? That we have seen it. I need schooled. Mapolova, when I was leading SATU, you were leading NATO. What is our role?
Principal, that's our report. Agiri, we've done it so that it must be filed. Remember, we use state resources to go there.
Okay.
So that it's filed as if but the problem is that also Llewellyn has done it for noting at the end. So that's why I thought we will just note it. But let us then adopt it as our report. It is our report. It's us that were there.
Yeah, then I will rise to say, on behalf of myself, I rise to formally adopt this report as part of us as members of this portfolio committee, because indeed all of us were expected to be there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any seconder?
Yeah, we are
only. So, can you second? You were there, Mos.
He ran away.
He ran away. No, then I'm seconding the report. I'm seconding the report. Thank you very much, members. Then we are adjourning the meeting.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Ndatema Polova, and even all
Recording
those who
stopped.